I think if I hear you call me Becky one more time, six-pack, I'm gonna pop your tops. All six of them.
Who are you?
Hey, this is Matt once again. What about another review? And this is a paid request from Eric. Thank you so much for that. If anyone wants to request pretty much any other type of videos or topics or reactions or anything random, reviews, re-reviews, what have you, feel free to send a paid request either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. Now, it's called The Great Dictator, and it's a 1940 film starring Charlie Chaplin, which was his first and maybe his only film that was a talking picture. Well, I don't know if it was only, because he did quite a few films after it, but it might have been his first. Because Charlie Chaplin, he was known more as a silent... well, it's the era of silent pictures. And he was one of the big stars of his time, especially in comedy. And now with him and Buster Keaton being the big inspiration for people like Jackie Chan and a variety of other comedians. I'm not sure really nowadays, but for a good portion after that, like Charlie Chaplin, very, very good as a physical, utilizing his body to do certain things, certain movements, like dancing, but with comedy, like the finesse, timing, hitting the right specific marks, and an expert dancer, but doing all for comedy, whether it be with the hat, bumbling, bouncing. I mean, even the scene here where he plays a character and there's a globe and he's got to bounce it, the way he sets his body up to bounce the thing perfectly, nothing really wanty or... Again, with finesse. You know, it looks easy, but it takes a little bit of talent to do that. And one of the first movies to satirize and make fun of Hitler, Adolf Hitler. And this is 1940 this came out, so this is before the U.S. went into World War II. This is before that. This is when Adolf Hitler and the Nazis overseas... And at this point, America, let's mind our own business. Until Pearl Harbor, then it was our business. But at least that was their thinking at the time. But technically, it was not the first to parody Hitler. Honestly, that was the Three Stooges. The Three Stooges was the first to parody Hitler. And a film called You Nazi Spy is a short film. And overall, I would say I like that more than this. Granted, that's 15, 20 minutes, short. While this is 2 hours. I did like the film, though. And it has, without a doubt, one of the best speeches of all time at the end of the film. That really encapsulates the movie, is that speech. And like, it's a speech that you could easily say today and give you goosebumps. I mean, it is a fantastic speech. Like I said, one of the best speeches of all time. But yeah, Three Stooges, You Nazi Spy, they did it first, but as a full-length movie, Charlie Chaplin did this. And the story, he plays two characters. He plays this Jewish barber who is with the military fighting in this nation of Tomania in 1918. And one thing leads to another. He's helping this pilot. They get shot down. Saves the pilot, but he gets amnesia. The war is over. Now this dictator, also played by Charlie Chaplin, he's taken over. And very, very reminiscent of Adolf Hitler. And it switches from him trying to find a way to take over more and more places and to pretty much rush into and invade certain areas, mixed in with this Jewish barber trying to regain his memory, just try to get by, meets this girl, his buddy, the pilot, who's now working with the dictator. Sometime later says, fuck this guy's an asshole, this is too much. This taken to a camp, able to escape. It's one of those things where, as I'm watching, I don't know if this needed to be 2 hours long. And that's the thing with films back in the day. It's not like 2 hours, but there's 10 minutes of credits. No, there's maybe 30 seconds of credits, but it's like 2 hours and 5 minutes. It's a very lengthy movie. But it is interesting to go back and watch older films of this nature to see the different techniques and just the different feel, and I'm not just talking about the fact it's black and white, but the fact that just the different principles of acting and music and sound is just such almost an alien world compared to today. A very complete alien world. I deal with how even the supporting actors, how people just talked, and the dialogue, and not only the stuff they say, but the stuff you're not going to hear that you would hear in a typical movie today. It's very interesting in a historical sense, not just of history itself, but of movie history. And there are times where it does showcase Charlie Chaplin's physical comedy. Early on in the 1918 war, this big fucking cannon, trying to fire it, and it misfires, and the missile's there, and it just starts following Charlie Chaplin. You know, that got a little chuckle out of me. Or when he's with the pilot and they don't realize they're flying upside down, so he checks something is like this. So they filmed it interesting where they're upside down, but the camera's here. So by us, we're in their viewpoint where they think they're flying normal, and so the watch is going like this, and water goes like this, and flying up. I'm like, did they film all this upside down? And they were upside down quite a while. I mean, like I said, kind of a funny scene. I wouldn't say it was that funny, though. Like, I would say if you go into this expecting, like, a absolute comedy, I don't think it's that consistently funny. Compared to, like, I got a lot more laughs out of Three Stooges, You Nazi Spy than I did out of this. Because there's also a lot of dramatic, like, serious, some, like, darkly comic moments. For example, I forget the character's name, but when Charlie Chaplin plays the wannabe Hitler, the guy comes in, oh, this is perfect, I got a bulletproof suit. Oh yeah? Shoots the guy falls, and is like, he says something to the effect of, oh, what was the dialogue? I'm trying to think now. Far from perfect. Or a guy's like, oh, I got this parachute. they watch him jump off, and they're just looking down, and then just do this, and then he tells the other guy, why do you keep sending me these guys? So you get the idea that the guy jumped, and obviously his parachute didn't work, that he tested out for this guy. And actually, that's a darkly comic scene, but I did laugh. I would say there's other moments where it does showcase Charlie Chaplin's physical comedy. Like when he's the Jewish barber and this music is playing. And it's a nice showcasing of his timing where to the music he's getting the razor ready and doing the shaving and doing this to the tune of the music, hitting each of the points. Or when he's the other guy, the Hitler wannabe, and he's playing with this globe, a globe of the earth, but it's like a beach ball. And the Gracie throws it up and bounces it off his head or of back of his foot. He gets on a table, even bounces it with his butt. Like the timing of it, and it's not going. The ball isn't going this way, falling down. Each one. And Charlie Chaplin was actually good. Mainly he's known as a silent actor, but I thought his acting with his voice, now that you can hear him, is actually pretty good as well. He had a strong voice for it, and it wasn't awkward or weird, and he definitely had something to say. It was something... In retrospect, you could say ahead of its time. Just like I said, this is before America went into World War II. But sadly, doing these films got Chaplin in a whole heaping of trouble, because Charlie Chaplin, I would say honestly, he's one of the... Yeah, he was a victim of cancel culture, now that I think about it. When you look at his background, he was a... You think people get canceled by culture today? Charlie Chaplin went through the same thing back then. Cancel culture. He said things that he wanted peace. Like he wanted peace, and hey, soldiers are not just machines, they're people too. Let's not fight, let's unite. Like these are valid things. But then people go, oh, he's talking about America, he's talking about us too, and then, oh, maybe he's a communist. The same fucking tactics that you would see people to do today. If you have a different opinion than them, then they give you some label, some horrible label that will hopefully get you either fired or get you in trouble, get you this and that. And that happens all the time today for people. And this is what I've said. Look back on your history. Look back on people like Charlie Chaplin, where they were doing stuff to him in this day and age, where he was one of the biggest stars of his time. But because he had differing political beliefs, he got chastised, he got threatened, and also there was people saying, oh, you fucked this lady, had a child. And he's like, no, I didn't. That's not my kid. That has happened before to people in recent times too. It is one of those, when you look at Charlie Chaplin's life, that's a great way to study cancel culture, or how just because something is said doesn't mean it's true, and that didn't affect people. And there was a time where Charlie Chaplin was technically banned from America, or at least he left at one point to do a movie, and it seemed like if he tried to come back, some people try to fight him. No, don't come back. You can't be let back in. And it just, again, when you look at Charlie Chaplin's history, there's a lot of sadness to it, as well as, showcasing that he was a very talented performer. Now, like I said, of the movie, like I said, there are moments that made me chuckle, or at least I appreciate the whole thing of seeing history. You watch films like this, you're seeing a history of movie making. And just how, like I said, the different personas of acting and stature and dialogue, and completely different than you would see in a movie today. but it did feel not as funny. I would not put this in the best comedies, just my favorite comedies is the ones that made me laugh the most. This made me chuckle a few times, but only a few times. Other points I'm going, just admiring the filmmaking or admiring the historical nature of it. I don't think this needed to be 2 hours. There's a whole thing where he's, as the Hitler wannabe, is arguing with this other guy before the argument of who's going to invade, or no, you remove the troops and I'll sign the treaty. No, you sign the treaty first, then I'll remove the troops. Before that, it's like all this build-up with this guy, and they're watching something and they hear an airplanes. Oh, that's one of yours because it crashed. We hear it. And like all this stuff, I'm going, I think all this stuff could be cut out. Even the bit where they're arguing and the hot mustard and they're arguing, but they both eat the hot mustard, so they're trying to help each other cool off. A lot of people like that stuff, and that's cool to me. Maybe that portion of the scene, but all the build-up before it, I don't think you needed. I don't know, I just, for me, I was seeing there are certain bits you could take out and shorten up a bit. And like I said, I don't think it's as consistently funny as it is to other people, whether it's because of the... I think even Charlie Chaplin later, he said, if I knew all the stuff they were doing over there, like how harsh... Just by this point, like they got little bits of info for what's going on, but they didn't know about Auschwitz. They didn't know about how horrible concentration camps you hear of, but not what exactly was being done. I think he even said I would not have even probably done the movie, or at least that way, if I knew fully what was going on there. Which is understandable. But it's still, nice to see Hitler get the piss taken out of him. I know Hitler was a fan of Chaplin, and apparently he saw it twice and never heard what he thought, but I'm sure he was clearly pissed off. And probably hurt because this guy I love made you fun of me. I'm like, of course. What do you think? What do you expect? But it's also just one of those things where, okay, this all this build up to this thing with the hot mustard, but then when it cuts back to our Jewish barber and his buddy, who's in a concentration camp, then all of a sudden they've escaped. And it doesn't really showcase how they escaped. It just, guards saying they've taken some clothes, and then our characters are on the road with different clothes. I'm like, so all this buildup of this stuff, but this stuff you're just going to skip through? Again, there's certain things I'm like, okay, that you probably need a little bit more coverage footage of, and the other a little bit less. But I didn't mind the acting. I didn't mind the way the movie was made or shot. The opening, like the big fucking can they have, some cool, I don't want to say set design, but it didn't look cheap or anything. And then the end is very memorable because, of course, Charlie Chaplin playing both characters. Chaplin, at this point, is the barber character, but he's in the dictator outfit, so they think it's him. And his buddy goes, go do this big speech. That way, they won't invade. They'll stop the invasion, and you could help change a bit of things. And for nothing else, this movie is worth seeing for the speech at the end. Even if I think there's merit throughout chunks of the film. But even if you don't, this speech at the end is full on with merit. I would put the speech in, but YouTube has this thing where sometimes, even though it's on YouTube, I could take the same clip that's on YouTube, but if I put it in a video, it'll get blocked. And it's just random. Just YouTube randomly is like, we'll let this one, or this one you'll get a claim, or this one you get blocked. So I Unless it's like 10 to 30-second clip. Usually that's fine. But it just, YouTube, like, just does whatever the fuck it wants, so I figured instead of showing, and you can find the clip, like if you type in the greatest speech of all time, or Charlie Chaplin, the Great Dictator speech, or you just type all that, you'll find it on YouTube. And I won't do it justice, but I'll do my best. So, like I said, the movie, overall I liked it. I do think it was well made. I thought Charlie Chaplin did a good job acting for a guy that was not used to doing movies in sound. He had a good voice for it. Very good voice for it. And you still have the Charlie Chaplin, not as much compared to others, but a little bit of that Charlie Chaplin physical comedy and cleverness. And it's still worth a look if you're a big fan of movies in general, if you're big fans of history in general. And it's interesting to look at some of the backstory. Again, like the fact that this was done before the U.S. went into World War II. Like, things of that nature was interesting. And like I said, this speech can be held in today's age, sadly. I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone, if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there is room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and to provide for everyone. The way of life to be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these adventures cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they take from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves in to these unnatural men. Machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. Only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery. Fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man. Not one man nor a group of men, but in all men. And you, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then, in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world that will give men a chance to work, that will give young a future, and old age a security. By the promise of these things, Bruce have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with natural barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, where science and progress see. There we go. There we go. Couldn't fit it all in the fight. Sorry, I can't remember all. I don't know how the hell he remembered all that. I have to read it. I barely can do it. And it didn't even fit the whole thing I posted. Couldn't even fit the whole damn thing on there. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the world. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of the democracy, let us all unite. Granted, he did a lot better than me. Go see that speech. It for a film that lengthy, that's a great way to end it. And sadly, that speech is still very, very relevant in today's age. And it's kind of sad that in 1940, a speech like that is still relevant to this day. Still to this day. But with that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.